It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. The Prime Minister says sorry for choosing to miss a D-Day event and is accused of walking out on veterans.
I think he lets the country down. You know, it's not representation of how we're trying to weld things together.
On reflection, that was a mistake and I apologise.
Also tonight, new CCTV footage of the missing TV doctor Michael Mosley as the search operation is stepped up in Greece. We asked why thousands of council homes are standing empty and derelict while desperate families wait years to be housed. Joe Biden points to the echoes of 1944 as he links the sacrifices of World War II veterans with Ukraine's fight against Russia. Plus,
oh, said I'm fine, but it wasn't true. I don't want to keep secrets just to keep you and I stuck.
the Swifties descend on Edinburgh for the first UK concert in a multi-billion-dollar global tour. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Good evening. It's the photograph which could become the defining image of this election campaign. 3 world leaders on the cliffs overlooking the beaches in Normandy. The Prime Minister conspicuously absent, his Foreign Secretary taking his place. Rishi Sunak was quick to apologise today after choosing to miss an international D-Day event to return to the UK. But that did little to contain the fallout. One of the men who waded onto the sand 80 years ago accused him of letting the country down. Mr Sunak's own Veterans Minister admitted he felt raw at the decision, while his political opponents accused him of being unpatriotic. Sky's Deputy Political Editor Sam Coates has tonight's first report.
This, the Prime Minister walking out on the nation's veterans, departing early from events commemorating the 80th anniversary of D-Day, rushing back to the UK to record a TV campaign interview, leaving the Foreign Secretary Lord Cameron to stand with the world leaders instead. And, in the middle of an election campaign, the leader of the opposition too. This, now a question of judgment.
Can you explain why yesterday you prioritised a campaign TV interview over the opportunity to commemorate those who gave everything for our country in June 1944? You left early. What were you thinking?
Over the past 2 days, I've participated in a number of events in Portsmouth and France to honour those who risked their lives to defend our freedom and our values 80 years ago. The itinerary for these events was set weeks ago, before the start of the general election campaign, and having participated in all the British events with British veterans, I returned home before the International Leaders event later in the day. On reflection, that was a mistake and I apologise. I think it's important, though, given the enormity of the sacrifice made, that we don't politicise this.
It's men like Ken Hay the Prime Minister chose to leave behind. He was just 18 when he landed on the beaches of Normandy. He was later captured, forced to work in a Polish coal mine and subjected to the infamous 1,000-mile-long march. His anger is not political.
I think he lets the country down. What are we doing? We bail out, let them get on with it. Because I want to stand in the election, I want my seat back. How soon are they long before they forget? Are we a 5-minute wonder? It'll all be forgotten next week, I don't know.
Ken Hay, a 98-year-old D-Day veteran, told us that you let the country down. Is he right?
I participated in events both in Portsmouth and in France over 2 days because this is an incredibly important moment for our country to commemorate the sacrifice of all of those and their service.
You feel no shame at all?
As I said, on reflection, it was a mistake not to stay longer, and I've apologised for that. But I also don't think it's right to be political in the midst of D-Day commemorations. The focus should rightly be on the veterans and their service and sacrifice for our country.
It's the veterans who are saying that you're letting the country down. Are they politicising this?
Now, I've apologised for not staying longer. On reflection, that was a mistake.
Hello. There is real fury from his own side. One candidate told me this shows the PM doesn't understand patriotism. Another said this is the biggest moment of the campaign so far.
Could the campaign get any worse, Prime Minister? That's the Prime Minister leaving after a very tense interview. Veterans are upset. His candidates are furious. And to the question of, well, can it get worse? There's no answer at the moment.
Penny Mordaunt, her party's face in a 7-way election debate, not defending her leader.
Look, I think what happened was very wrong, and I'm glad the Prime Minister has said that, and he's apologised. He's apologised to veterans, but I think he also has apologised to everyone, because he was there representing us.
An open goal for opponents.
If his instinct was the same as the British people, he would never have contemplated for a moment not being there.
What we saw from the Prime Minister was panic, and I think it's the same pre-election panic that gave us that back of a fag packet plan for a new national service.
It was not only politically shameful, but I think many of us feel personally quite insulted.
A potentially defining day for a faltering campaign. And it got worse. The PM heckled by a GP at a campaign stop in Wiltshire.
You cannot employ lesser qualified people instead of GPs. The country is not stupid.
So we have to keep going, do we?
On a day like today, a question he could be forgiven for asking, learning lessons the hard way. At a school located on Veterans Way. His problems follow him down every road. Sam Coates, Sky News, Swindon.
Let's take you to central London now. Our chief political correspondent, John Craig. John, the Prime Minister has apologised, but just how much damage has been done, do you think?
An enormous amount of damage. This is a terrible, terrible unforced error by the Prime Minister and his aides inside Number 10. This wasn't just a spontaneous gaffe, like, for example, the bigoted woman gaffe by Gordon Brown in 2010 when he left a microphone on. That was accidental. This was bad planning. Crass, bad politics as well. A snub not only to world leaders like Joe Biden, President Macron, Chancellor Scholz, where David Cameron had to stand next to them for the photo call. It was an appalling snub, really, to all those very, very aged Normandy veterans who'd made the difficult journey over there. Many of them in wheelchairs, had to be aided throughout the day. And clearly the Prime Minister recognised this straight away with his early morning apology, but the damage had been done. And then to make matters worse, Penny Mordaunt here at a debate in central London, without being asked about it, said wrong, wrong, wrong 3 times. Completely wrong was the first thing she said, then very wrong. Nigel Farage, as we've heard, waded in as well. Penny Mordaunt, a few days ago, it was claimed she was being kept in a box by Number 10 and the PM's allies because she was seen as a threat. Well, on this issue, she didn't do the PM any favours tonight by backing those who criticised Mr Sunak. They will be pleased in Number 10 that she took the fight to Labour and Angela Rayner over tax and that controversial £2,000 tax grab claim, which Labour say is a lie. There's a real ding-dong between Penny Mordaunt and Angela Rayner over that. So on most, she was relentlessly on message, but she has heaped more trouble on the Prime Minister by criticising him over that D-Day snub.
John, thank you very much for the moment. And don't forget our Sky News Leaders event, the Battle for Number 10, next Wednesday, the 12th of June, with Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer in our election target town, Grimsby. Do join us next Wednesday here on Sky News, live from 7 p.m. Dogs, divers and drones were all used to search for the TV doctor Michael Mosley today after he went missing on the Greek island of Symi. New CCTV footage was released earlier this evening, showing him shortly before he was last seen after going for a walk. Sky's Sadia Chowdhury reports from Greece.
Caught on CCTV just half an hour after he went missing, but for over 48 hours now, Michael Mosley hasn't been seen. The Greek island of Symi is only small, But right across it, they're searching. On land, at sea, and from the sky too.
Glucose is an essential fuel for your body, but it's also quite toxic.
Dr. Mosley's a familiar face on our screens and on the radio, known for presenting programmes about healthy living.
A very sugary drink to simulate a carb-loaded meal.
And famous for the 5-2 diet, which encourages intermittent fasting. Dr. Mosley is understood to have left his wife on St. Nicholas Beach at 1:30 on Wednesday to go for a walk, back to their accommodation. It should have taken under an hour, but he never arrived. The route he took was reportedly along the coastal path, past the Peddy area, where he was seen on CCTV at around 2 o'clock. He didn't have his phone on him. At 7:30, his wife raised the alarm after he failed to return to their hotel. She spent the next day searching for him, looking near a local supermarket.
She was asking if we saw him, if he came into the shop to buy something, but we didn't see him at all. And actually the path from St. Nicholas Beach to our shop, it's about 1 kilometer, and it's very easy to come. It's not dangerous.
Since yesterday, emergency services from nearby Rhodes and Athens have provided assistance. And today, divers joined the effort too. Symi has a population of just over 2,500 people. It's a sixth of the size of the Isle of Wight. And it's hot. Temperatures of over 30 degrees on Wednesday, nearing 40, raising concerns among locals and with Dr. Mosley's colleagues in the UK. BBC presenter Jeremy Vine said he was praying for Dr. Mosley and his family, and co-presenter Saleha Ahsan said she was sick with worry. A feeling familiar to Gary Tossell, whose father John went missing on a neighbouring Greek island 5 years ago.
When I read the story, it's a cut and paste of my father. It is, he went for a walk and vanished in the thin air. And obviously as a family, we on the phone, we got together, we were like going, this is surreal. I know exactly what they're going through, and it must be awful for them out there at the minute.
For Dr. Mosley's friends, his wife, and for his 4 children, the wait for the news is undoubtedly unbearable. Their hope and the search efforts to find him still going on.
And Sadia is live tonight on the neighbouring Greek island of Rhodes. Sadia, what's the situation tonight?
Well, look, we're going into a third night, and as you can imagine, with situations like this, the more the time passes, the more that the concerns mount. It is now over 2 days since Dr. Mosley was last seen, and that search for him continues. It's being led by the police, but they're being helped by the Coast Guard, by local volunteer groups, by fire and rescue teams, and they're really throwing everything at it: personnel, search dogs, drones and helicopters. Now, these islands are very picturesque and they're very popular with tourists, but when something like this happens, it can really start to make that peacefulness disappear. And they're also really small islands, and I think that adds to the worry, because the fact that it's been over 2 days and there's not a single clue as to what happened is actually really concerning. And it's really hot, so it's difficult for search and rescue teams who are out there working throughout the days, but it's also really difficult and not ideal if someone is lost without their phone or missing and or possibly injured. And at the heart of this is a family still searching for a loved one. We understand that Dr. Mosley's three sons and his daughter have now arrived here and likely to take part in this search operation. And they will go into tonight, a third night, with no news.
Sadia, thank you. To a developing story now, and the Prime Minister of Denmark is said to be shocked after being attacked in the street in Copenhagen. Mette Frederiksen's office says she was beaten in an open street in the city centre by a man who was then arrested. It's not clear whether she sustained any physical injuries. European Council President Charles Michel says he's outraged by the assault. Imagine living your whole life in one cramped room, your child learning to walk late because of the lack of space, your local council blaming a shortage of social housing, then finding out that 34,000 council properties in England sit empty, the highest number since 2009. For Rose, who has been waiting 2 years for new accommodation, it's proof that families like hers aren't being prioritised. She's been speaking to our communities correspondent, Becky Johnson.
Empty, unused and unavailable for those who need them. Amid a national housing crisis, in England, almost 34,000 council houses are boarded up and closed down. More than 6,000 have been vacant for over a year. We've been working with housing campaigner Kwejo Twenaboa to reveal the numbers.
You've got people sleeping on the streets, you've got people who are sleeping in garages and storage containers, yet we've got thousands of homes sat empty, council homes, up and down the country, which aren't being used.
Instead, councils are paying millions to private landlords to house families in substandard temporary accommodation like this. We first met Rose and her daughters earlier this year. They live in this one room and share a bathroom and kitchen with strangers. Rose is a student and can't afford private rent here in South London. They're waiting for a council house.
Hi Rose, hi, how are you?
I'm fine.
Good. This is great.
Hey, lovely to meet you. How are you? Nice to meet you. Pleased to meet you.
We've come to see if she's had any news.
You're still here. How long have you been living here now?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, now it's exactly 2 years. My firstborn still wears nappies because in the middle of the night she can't just get up and go to a shared toilet with all these people that she don't know. My baby, it took her time to walk because she didn't have enough room and she couldn't use like the baby walker.
A recent call with Croydon Council has left her worried.
She said to me that you would have to like move out of London and find a house.
Is she saying there are no
Yeah, she told me there's no council houses, like there's no social houses. Those were her words. We have no social houses.
We've been investigating and actually found there are in fact thousands of empty social homes across London, and many of them have been empty for more than a year. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel heartbroken, lied to and deceived.
A short drive away, we've brought Rose to Lambeth. Dozens of homes on this estate have been left empty since it was earmarked for demolition several years ago.
This lovely front garden, this could have been for us. I guess we don't deserve it.
The question is why so many homes are empty. We've come to Southwark to try to get some answers. This block of council flats was designated for redevelopment, but the cost of building has gone up so much it's now due to be demolished. 144 homes unused since 2015. The local government association blames a shortage of funding for councils.
The council doesn't have the money in place to be able to refurbish them and bring them back into use as council homes.
So you seal it off to redevelop it and then realise you can't afford to redevelop it?
Bluntly, that's what's happened in so many cases. You know, there's a complete false economy. You know, if we're not able to spend the money on the actual solution, but we're using a sticky plaster of temporary accommodation, then the system is broken.
We asked Croydon Council why Rose had been told she would need to move out of London. Following our contact, the council now says it's identified a permanent home for the family that they will be offered soon. But there are many thousands more like them, still waiting, despite council homes lying empty. Becky Johnson, Sky News.
While Rishi Sunak has scrambled to deal with the fallout from his decision to leave Normandy early, the US president was again on the cliffs overlooking Omaha Beach, emphasising his support for Ukraine. As American veterans looked on, Joe Biden referred to the echoes of 1944 hours after he apologised to Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky for the political stalemate which has slowed down funding. Our Europe correspondent Adam Parsons reports from Normandy.
Under a heavenly sky, the American president came to the place where his troops once went through hell. The US Rangers scaled the cliffs of Pointe du Hoc on D-Day using ropes, ladders and bare hands. It was an audacious, ferocious assault, the president staring in wonder down the cliff face, and he then invoked the spirit of those Rangers into the modern world.
Does anyone doubt that they would want America to stand up against Putin's aggression here in Europe today? They stormed the beaches alongside our allies. Does anyone believe these Rangers would want America to go it alone today. They fought to vanquish a hateful ideology in the 30s and 40s. Does anyone doubt they wouldn't move heaven and earth to vanquish hateful ideologies of today?
There was a political dimension to this too. Biden believes his resolve to back America's place in the world is what truly sets him apart from Donald Trump. Joe Biden's speech here in Normandy was a commitment to support democracy and oppose tyranny. This is a president who was alive during D-Day. It shaped the world in which he grew up. And maybe that's why he is so determined to support Ukraine against Russia. And in France's National Assembly, Ukraine's president welcomed warmly.
The only thing needed is for Ukrainians not to be left alone, for us to have effective support, continuous, timely, long-range enough, and with leadership. And then we will definitely do our job.
Volodymyr Zelensky has long worried that support for his country would fade. Instead, here, amid the echoes of D-Day and the spectre of tyranny, it has been reaffirmed. Adam Parsons, Sky News, Normandy.
From Joe Biden to Donald Trump, who is the first US president to be convicted of a felony. He faces at least 3 other criminal cases, even as he is campaigning to return to the White House. But he's facing legal troubles here in the UK too, having breached a High Court order to pay £300,000 to former British spy Christopher Steele. Paul Kelso can explain why.
Donald Trump has just become the first American president to be convicted of a felony, but he faces legal troubles here too. The former president is in breach of a High Court order to pay hundreds of thousands of pounds in legal costs to a former British spy he tried and failed to sue.
I think he's just got contempt for the legal process. But the fact is that we were awarded a £300,000 initial cost order in February, which was confirmed when his right of appeal was turned down at the end of March. And so he's been in breach of that order for 2 months now.
Get out and vote. Get out and vote. Thank you.
Christopher Steele has been a thorn in Donald Trump's side since the 2016 presidential campaign, when his company produced a salacious dossier for Trump's political opponents alleging Russian election interference, including claims of blackmail and the use of sex workers, which the former president denies.
I think it was disgraceful that the intelligence agencies allowed any information that turned out to be so false and fake out. I think it's a disgrace.
When the dossier was leaked to the media after the election, Mr. Trump sued and lost, first in the US and then here.
In February, a judge here at the High Court dismissed Donald Trump's case against Christopher Steele and ordered him to pay £300,000 in costs, a figure that could end up even higher. The former spy has since made a formal offer to accept just 70% of what he's owed, but he's still waiting to hear back from the former president.
With 4 legal cases against him still active in the US, this British court ruling may not be a priority.
He's focused on all of the other cases, criminal cases against him, on top of which he is now running as the Republican nominee for president of the United States. So it could be as simple as this is the last thing on his mind.
Christopher Steele is unapologetic.
You produced a dossier which was commissioned by his political opponents, designed to discredit him and possibly stop him getting into the White House. Are you surprised he's after you?
I stand by the work we did, the sources we had and the way we handled it. And of course, it's important to realise that we didn't leak the dossier. And yet we are the ones that have been, I would say, persecuted subsequently by Trump and others for it.
Donald Trump has not responded to Sky News' request for comment. If he wins in November, it raises the prospect of his returning to the UK as president in defiance of the British courts. Paul Kelso, Sky News.
Just Stop Oil protesters have attempted to disrupt the Duke of Westminster's wedding in Chester, where the Prince of Wales acted as an usher. 2 women, aged 69 and 73, let off orange smoke from a fire extinguisher. They were removed from the crowd by police and taken into custody. Well, it happened as guests were leaving after the ceremony in which Hugh Grosvenor, who's 33, married his bride, Olivia Henson, who's 31. It was a disappointing night for both England and Scotland in their final matches before they head to Euro 2024 in Germany. Gareth Southgate's England lost 1-0 to Iceland at Wembley. It's the first time they've lost their final match before a major tournament since 1968. Well, Scotland let slip a 2-goal lead to draw 2-2 with Finland. Scotland play Germany in the opening game of Euro 2024 next Friday. It's the highest grossing global tour of all time, and tonight it's kicked off in Edinburgh. Fans queued for 2 days to see the artist, whose UK shows could add £1 billion to the UK economy. Our entertainment correspondent Katie Spencer was watching as Taylor Swift stepped on stage.
Welcome to the Eras Tour.
A pinch-yourself moment for those Swifties fortunate enough to be here. Opening night of the UK leg of Taylor Swift's £1 billion grossing tour, beginning way before the start to the stage. Lyrics memorised, costumes perfected. A weary handful camping out overnight to be first in line.
Anything's worth it for Taylor, you know, like I would kill for her. Sell my kidneys, both lungs probably.
In the city centre, drag artists happy to substitute for Swift.
It takes a lot of hairspray, duct tape and a dream.
Edinburgh fully embracing the spoils of Swiftonomics, as it's been dubbed.
Accommodation has skyrocketed. It's not normal for hotels to charge the rates that we're charging this weekend, and people are coming from all over the world to see her. So it's not just people from the UK. We have guests coming over from the States just to watch Taylor in Scotland, from Denmark, from all over Europe. It's just people love Taylor and they'll travel the world.
Champagne problems, please.
Taylor Swift, a one-woman economy-boosting machine.
Such is the spending power of Swifties that her 15 UK shows are projected to boost the economy, thank you very much, by almost £1 billion, with the average fan estimated to be spending around £850, not only on things like tickets, but on accommodation, travel, and free parties like this.
Fans travelling from all over the world to be here. Kylie and Mallory from America.
A reward for doing well in your studies.
Yes, for graduation and birthdays.
And birthdays, Christmas, every holiday.
Yeah. You've had flights as well to get here.
It would have been more expensive for us to see her in the US.
Friendships forged along the way. Bracelet workshops laid on so fans have something to swap.
Mine says Sparks Fly.
Mine just says Haze. For lavender haze.
Of course, this level of pop obsession is nothing new.
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem, it's me.
But in this era, that one artist can galvanise so many at a time when we're swamped with musical choice speaks volumes of the power of Taylor Swift's music.
Welcome to Edinburgh, Taylor. We love you. I love your personality, Taylor.
You slay, Taylor. We love you, Taylor.
Forget about politicians touring the country. Taylor Swift's whereabouts will be what's dominating the national conversation for vast swathes of the country over the next month. A cruel summer for those who haven't got a ticket. Katie Spencer, Sky News in Edinburgh.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by Daily Mirror columnist Susie Boniface and political commentator Benedict Spence. Amongst the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front of the Financial Times. Its headline, Sunak accused of handing gift to reform by skipping D-Day event. More on that and other stories when we come back. Do stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. But first, our top stories. The senior Conservative, Penny Mordaunt, has said Rishi Sunak was wrong to leave yesterday's D-Day events early to record a television interview, leaving Lord Cameron to take his place. New CCTV footage has been released of the TV doctor Michael Mosley, who's still missing in Greece. And the Danish Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, is said to be in shock tonight after being beaten in the street by a man in Copenhagen. You are watching the press preview, first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with Daily Mirror columnist Susie Boniface and political commentator Benedict Spence. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. The Rishi Sunak D-Day controversy leads the Financial Times weekend edition with the headline, Sunak accused of handing gift to reform by skipping D-Day event. It's the same lead story in the Eye, where it says the Tories are in despair over a gaffe which they fear could destroy their election hopes. According to Susie's paper, The Mirror, that's already happened. The headline, it's over. The Guardian says grassroots party members have reacted with fury. While The Times carries tonight's criticism of Mr Sunak by Commons leader Penny Mordaunt, who called his actions completely wrong. As for the election itself, The Telegraph reports that the Prime Minister is planning to axe stamp duty for first-time home buyers. The Mail carries the latest on a missing TV doctor and one of its own columnists, Michael Mosley, in Greece, asking if he may have taken what the paper calls a wrong turn to disaster. And a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by Daily Mirror columnist Susie Boniface and political commentator Benedict Spence. Welcome to both of you. Let's start with the story on many of the front pages, and that is the D-Day commemorations fiasco, as was, because Rishi Sunak returned early. How's it being handled in tomorrow's newspapers, Susie?
Gosh, it hasn't gone away. It's not going to go away. I mean, if it gets to the point where a D-Day veteran says you've let your country down, it's pretty much game over for anybody. And if there wasn't a general election going on, there would be letters of no confidence going in to the Prime Minister at this point. And there's a couple of things here which is worth unpacking a little bit. So the fact that the FT here is saying that this is a gift to reform, the idea that support for our military is purely a right-wing phenomenon and that left-wing voters, Labour voters, older people of all types, younger people of all political persuasions do not support D-Day veterans and armed forces in general is mad, is not just handing a gift to reform. He's handed a gift to Keir Starmer. He handed a great political gift to him of having the photograph taken with Zelensky and of not having his picture with the world leaders. He's handed a moral gift to whoever his opponents are in any seat in the country. The Stephen McGann, who's in Call the Midwife, said on Twitter earlier on that, you know, his granddad spent more time on the beach than Rishi Sunak did at the thing. And it may not be accurate, I don't know. But everybody's granddad has probably passed across that beach or could have passed across that beach or knows someone who passed across that beach. And that applies to so many people from so many different walks of life. Rishi Sunak's managed to insult a broad range of human beings from different demographics. It's not just a thing for reform. It's not just something Nigel... And that's why Penny Mordaunt had to go in that debate today and immediately, minute one, go, that was very wrong, throw him under a bus. Well, actually, she didn't have to throw him under a bus. He's already under the bus. He put himself under the bus. She just kicked him in a bit further.
And as if to add insult to injury, in Rishi Sunak's explanation himself, he said that the itinerary for these events was set weeks ago before the start of the general election campaign, which means that he never had any intention to attend that event. Benedict?
Yeah, it's not a very good explanation, is it? It's just not particularly reassuring. What I think is really interesting about this is it's appalling optics. And it's happened because, actually, this is a government that is entirely focused on the press and how it looks in the press. And it was very keen, therefore, to get in that slot for that interview with ITV. And so focused was it on what it perceived as being the most important thing. But it missed the most open goal.
But it wasn't even a time-critical interview.
Exactly. Yeah. It completely lost sight of, in fact, what was important. Possibly because this was not something that you can make a big show and dance about Rishi Sunak over. They thought, he'll be sort of obscured by the fact that there are other, dare we say, more important things going on. And this is the problem when you have a government that is so obsessed with its media strategy that it loses sight of and therefore causes perhaps the biggest media blunder, certainly that I can remember. Yeah. You know, that's how these sorts of things happened. A government that isn't focused on policy, it isn't really focused on anything apart from its image in the media. And this is how you get those sorts of mistakes.
From a cynically political point of view, to be really cynical about it, if you call a general election campaign and you know there is a 2-day period in the middle of that when everyone else is taking a back seat because you're the Prime Minister, there will be no campaigning in that 48 hours. The other side's going to have to shut up and you're going to get to prance about with Olaf Scholz and Joe Biden and Emmanuel Macron and have your picture taken and be with the veterans and everything else. Then that is one of the reasons, one of the calculations, one of the things your media team goes, hooray, those 48 hours are going to be good for us. And they've somehow managed to even screw that up. But even more importantly, I've reported on D-Day events for years, and I've been speaking to veterans for years. And even if you go to an event and you think, well, this is just it's a job, I have to do this, I have to go there, and something else, there is always a moment where someone says something, someone does something, where you're taken aback and you, gosh, and any normal human being is going to sense, you know, the importance of what you're doing, even if it's only for a second. And Sunak had spent a day and a half at different veterans events and plainly hadn't heard a word of what was going on around him, had any sense of what he was laying the poppy wreath in that for. He went through the motions. That's what it looks like. And I think there's been lots of comparisons with Gordon Brown's Gillian Duffy moment, talking about that bigoted woman. And it was a bit different. It appeared to be that someone who was civil in public was being a bit rude in private. There was a conversation, was she bigoted, was she not bigoted? People could argue about it. This has all been played out in public. It's blatant. It was planned and intended in advance that he was never going to give them any attention. And it's something where no one, even people who are saying, well, maybe he did have to come home for something, they still say it was wrong. There's no one saying that he was in the right.
It's interesting that you say, you know, this isn't.
While we're talking, we'll just bring up some of the other papers, but go ahead, Ben.
It's interesting that you say that this isn't so much a gift for Farage, it's a gift for Starmer, because actually Farage has talked a lot about this, about how it's disgraceful, it's unpatriotic. Starmer, as far as I'm aware, hasn't really said very much at all, and it's given Starmer the opportunity to look incredibly statesmanlike by understanding that this is not the moment for political point scoring. He is not out there, giving it both guns. He just turned up, he met people, he understood that this was not about him, and my word, doesn't he look like the better person out of this as a result. But there is also this very strange phenomenon now of lots of Conservative or former Conservative voters saying this is the final straw, this is the thing, this is the straw that broke the camel's back because it's the disrespect. This, for me, from a personal perspective, I'm sat here looking at the state of our current armed forces. I'm saying, really? This is the moment that broke the camel's back? Actually, what's more disrespectful? Not turning up or leaving early from a remembrance event, or actually squandering the legacy of, the peace that those people won by underinvesting in our armed forces, getting us to a point where we have former defence ministers going on national radio saying we no longer have the industrial base to fight Russia if there were an invasion, where we have former defence ministers turning around and saying we might need to introduce conscription because we haven't actually staffed our armed forces properly. And I sit there and I go, really? This is the moment that broke the camel's back? Actually, I think there have been many things leading up to this where if defence is the important thing for you, the alarm bells were ringing for some time.
Yeah, but this is the point at which he's been rude to Grandad. That's what matters a lot. That really brings it home. But he's been terrible, despite what Johnny Mercer said today. Rishi Sunak has been pretty bad to veterans for the entirety of his time in office. He has refused...
Johnny Mercer was saying otherwise, that he'd been his big supporter.
Yeah, but he didn't manage to get veterans' ID cards to be voter ID in time. Although he announced a medal for nuclear veterans who actually won the peace, or secured the peace that was won by the guys at D-Day, he's refused 12 times to meet the veterans that I work with who've got evidence of crimes being committed against them by the British state. And he's just not able to, and it's a relatability thing. It's not about being wealthy. It's about being slightly just divorced from the rest of the planet and not being able to see what matters not to you but to somebody else.
But will he have done this on advice? There are some people saying his advisors need to be sacked and those around him are the real culprits.
Who employs his advisors? Who's in charge of them?
No, I take that point. He is ultimately where the buck should stop. However, I think we all agree, as the Mirror says, it's over for Rishi Sunak. His political career is done. An awful lot of these people, anybody who's been paying attention to the efforts to stitch up selections by CCHQ of candidates for this election, will notice that a lot of these people are advisors, or former advisors, either to Rishi Sunak or people close to him. These are clearly people with one eye on their own political futures. And if these are the sorts of people who plan on being MPs, and clearly, as most Tory MPs want to be Prime Minister or somebody very serious at some point, I think it's actually very right that we put a lot of scrutiny on the strategy, because these are the exact same people who will be trying to get into government in a couple of years' time. Who knows? Strange as it may seem, one day they might succeed. And I think they do need to be put under the spotlight to say, so what part did you play in all of this?
Yeah.
Why did you give the Prime Minister that advice? Do you really think this is a job that you should be doing?
The problem is they've been doing so badly for so long that Number 10's got this bunker mentality. Ministers can't get in to talk to Rishi about things. The MPs aren't able to influence and get into there to discuss and say what's going on in the party management or anything else. They just gather round and then they talk to themselves, and then they've decided what they think is important, and they're not relating it to the country at all. And it's beyond over. It was over some time ago. It's dragging it out now. This is now a zombie Prime Minister with a rotting government that's dragging this festering corpse around the country on some kind of battle bus going, hey, vote for me.
You're saying it's
Wiltshire, over. In Wiltshire, where they shouldn't need convincing to vote Tory.
Don't sit on the fence, Sylvie. Say exactly what you think.
Oh, I just want, you know, the domestos of democracy needs to clean this up and get rid, because it smells bad.
You can tell she's a columnist, can't you? Look at these messages.
Actually,
fantastic.
Actually, I say my 8-year-old came up with the domestos of democracy.
Wow.
So that's actually
She's got a future.
More nepotism. I can't believe it.
Let's turn to the debate tonight, that seven-handed debate. And in the Times, they're still talking about the D-Day fiasco. And Penny Mordaunt didn't hold back her criticism, really, of Rishi Sunak.
She didn't, and I think Penny Mordaunt's got two things. I mean, everybody knows that Penny Mordaunt also would like to be leader of the Conservative Party. You know, she's stood twice to be, and if she survives, she will almost certainly do again. But that's the big question. If she survives, she is in an incredibly difficult situation where odds are, I would say, actually, she probably will lose her seat. She obviously comes from a sort of a naval background. Her constituency has, you know, given that it's Portsmouth, obviously, a lot of links to the armed forces. I couldn't envisage a world in which Penny Mordaunt wasn't going to come out and, as Susie says, throw the Prime Minister slightly further under the bus that he was already under. She had to do that, not just for the state of the party, but for her own political skin. If she has any hope at all, this tonight was not so much a please vote for Rishi Sunak, he's not a bad guy kind of situation. This was as much an appeal, I think, directly to her constituents to say, I'm not Rishi Sunak, I'm separating myself from this.
I think it was mostly an advert for hairspray, because that
and a good one at that.
helmet is astonishing. I mean, I didn't watch much of the debate, but when I did see anything of it, all I could look at, I wasn't listening to anything like this, I was looking at the hair. It's astonishing. It's like Bridget Jones in the first film, when she's in Daniel Cleaver's soft top.
We shouldn't really comment on personal appearance, because we probably wouldn't if it were a male politician.
If a male came out with hair that bouffant, I definitely would.
OK, let's move on to actually the campaign trail. And in the Times, Rishi Sunak vowing to abolish stamp duty for the first time. First-time buyers.
No, he hasn't. It's rubbish. It's utter rubbish. So what they're doing now, because they have got all this problem, they are now kind of, as Dan Hodges, another one of your commentators, was saying on Twitter, that they're throwing everything at the manifesto now, just trying to move things on a little bit from the disaster we've just had. So there's this line that we're going to abolish stamp duty for first-time buyers and properties under £425,000. But Theresa May abolished stamp duty for first-time buyers in 2018 on properties under £300,000. She re-announced it in 2019, and then Boris Johnson mentioned it in 2019, and again in 2020. It's been a temporary measure for 6 years, and umpty-tumpty prime ministers who keep saying they're going to do this and they're going to make it permanent, and we're going, don't worry. And it has made no difference whatsoever to any first-time buyers, really, that anyone's noticed.
The Telegraph reporting that the new stamp duty policy makes permanent something which Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng introduced.
Well, you can literally, every single Conservative Prime Minister, no matter how brief, has tried to have this at the forefront. And the Telegraph says 200,000 households will benefit from this. Well, clearly it's not an increase on the numbers that would already benefit it, because people already do benefit from it. But I would just sort of take this back slightly. Why is this so important? It's because there is a housing crisis in this country, especially for first-time buyers. Many people are struggling to get on the housing ladder. What was really, really evident from the debate, as far as I was aware, nobody touched upon that as an issue. It wasn't mentioned at all, and it is so core, so fundamental to so many of the economic and social issues that we have in this country. There is not enough housing, there is not enough building going on. None of the parties were prepared to touch it because they are too scared to address it and say to their voters, look, you are going to have houses where you don't want them, and that's tough.
Labour has said that. They
not
said
during that debate.
No, but they have said that they'll have more planning and they'll loosen things
Michael
up.
Gove said that as well.
Yeah.
It went really well.
Yeah.
Benedict and Sophie, thank you. Sophie? Susie. Why am I calling you Sophie? Well, she's going to leave now. Thank you very much for the moment. Coming up, this on the front of the Mail, focusing on the desperate search and rescue efforts of health writer Dr. Michael Mosley. We'll be back.
I'm Martin Brunt, and I'm Sky's crime correspondent. My most memorable story was, and still is, the disappearance of Madeleine McCann.
Please, please do not hurt her. Please give our little girl back.
We aim to be the best and most trusted place for news. For detectives, the first 48 hours after a murder are crucial in the search for clues. The public expects them to find Jill Dando's killer soon. The British detectives are planning to meet forensic experts, academics, and even witch doctors. I remember the grimmest case, the Soham murders of schoolgirls Holly and Jessica. I felt I can't undo what's happened, but I can help explain it. Ian Huntley was arrested and charged within a fortnight of the murders.
I've never murdered anyone, I've never raped anyone. What am I in jail for?
The parole board has to decide if Bronson needs to be kept locked up for the safety of the public. My biggest challenge was to persuade a jailed diamond thief to answer my letters. Martin Brunt, Sky News, at the Old Bailey.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, Daily Mirror columnist Susie Boniface and political commentator Benedict Spence. Let's take a look at this story in the Times, and this is about the cyber attack, this NHS hacking attack, presumed to be Russian or criminal cyber attack, and the effect that it's having on patients' health. Significant.
It's obviously something that you never want to think about, is that an IT failure or hack could end up in impacting the ability of the healthcare system to work. But this story talks about how blood transfusions have been affected. And I'll just read what it is that King's management sent out to medical staff. We are unable to perform any of the many automated processes and electronic safety checks that would normally do as part of standard issuing. Meaning that we cannot guarantee antibody history, special requirements and full unit compatibility. So just think about what that entails. Blood transfusion is, of course, essential when it comes to all kinds of operations. It has a massive knock-on effect. And given that it is one of the constants that we've spoken about for so long, delays in NHS care, be it critical care, be it cancer care, all sorts of different things, this is the exact worst kind of situation that you could possibly envisage. An extra sort of added delay that also puts immediate lives at risk. It creates an awful sort of bottleneck of a situation where people could die as a result of this. And again, we have to talk about people will talk about things like NHS efficiency, how much money is there for the health service. The fact of the matter is, the NHS's IT systems are not fit for purpose. They are outdated, and they have been for a very long time. And this is one of those issues that always is brought up as a sort of a political football. Whose fault is it? You know, this NHS service in this country works slightly worse than this one, be it Wales, be it wherever. Ultimately, what is required is a major injection of cash to effectively update the system. Otherwise, we are going to continue to be vulnerable to external and malicious attacks like this. Because this is a state actor. This is exactly the sort of thing that you'd be doing to basically test our systems. And just think about this. This is at a time of peace, albeit during a general election. Imagine if we were at war, or imagine if this was in the middle of another pandemic, that a hostile nation could just go at the press of a button, not literally the press of a button, but could cause so much carnage on a much larger scale. And that's what we have to think about. This is not necessarily, you know, an effort to disable us, but if it can be done on this sort of scale, the knock-on effects are catastrophic.
Part of the issue is this isn't hacking NHS, it's hacking an outside lab which provides blood services to multiple NHS hospitals, because to save money they have outsourced to someone, and so therefore it is outside the NHS. It is more vulnerable perhaps, but once that outside source then gets attacked, multiple hospitals are affected and thousands more patients if you just went after one hospital.
Susie, we're just running out of time. I wanted to bring in our final story, and that is the continuing search for Dr. Michael Mosley on the Greek island of Symi.
Obviously, it's very sad. Dr. Michael Mosley is somebody who I think a lot of people are aware of, and always comes across as a sort of very upbeat, very well-informed, a very jovial person with what you might call a very good bedside manner. Obviously, I think everybody hopes that he is found, but given what has been reported about the circumstances on the island, the temperatures, his situation, one hopes that this happens very fast, because there is a very short window.
Benedict and Susie, thank you very much. We'll see you at the top of the hour.